Yeah. So post-production will be editing.
Post-production is the editing. Yep. So,
Okay.
and the finishing, all the
finishing and just packaging. Yeah.
Yep. So there are lots of stages of post-production. You know, you start out and you do a rough cut of something. You know, you probably are familiar with this with what you do as well. You do a rough cut, just kind of piecing together how does it flow.
Yeah.
And then you fine tune it. You know, cut this out, you edit this out, add music here, you add sound effects here, you know, just getting it the piece fine. You know, then you have your fine cut. And then once everybody approves all that, you know, all the layers of people that need to approve it, then you have your final cut. So those are the stages of editing. And so I very quickly, you know, kind of found that that's where I was happy. And it was all, again, just not dissimilar to a theater production, where you start with a script, you start with actors, and then you rehearse, and then you put it on stage, and you have all these levels of production with a theater. That's very familiar territory for me. And you know, so I really do. I love post-production. I love, one of my favorite things is I've worked for a few nonprofits, and they don't have any money, they don't have any resources. And sometimes they'd say, we have all this footage of this event that we did and these little interviews, and they did them with their phones or whatever. And they're like, can you make something of this? And it'll be hours of stuff, right? And they just want a 3-minute thing for their website. So I kind of love that, where most people would just be like, oh my God, you know.
You're like rummaging through all that.
Like I look at every single, you know, second of the video, and then I, you know, start, you know, cutting, stringing out stuff that works, little things that work. And, you know.
You start with do you like, let's say, do you start with an idea, with a story, or do you sometimes discover that as you're going through, say, oh, yes. I see, that's the thing. Okay. Yes, to both.
Those things can happen. Sometimes you can have a script. You know, a client will say, here's what we need to do, and then we need to get these interview bites from this person. And other times it's not. It's more what you call documentary style, where you have an idea. I want to cover, you know, this, like, well, for this nonprofits, they had a big event, and they want to, you know, encapsulate it into a 3-minute thing, but event was all weekend long. So you had hours of footage, interviews with people about the event, the exhibits, blah, blah, blah. So that, in that case, you are basically starting with the material and saying, well, what's the message I want to convey? And I will say to them, what do you want this piece to say? Who is going to be watching this piece? So it's all those things. You know, you look at your viewer, you know, the message, what you want that. And then from there, you know, I will pull, you know, do little pulls of all the bites, all the sound bites, and try to develop, you know, a creative way to, you know, demonstrate.
Give me an example, if you could, of like a real gig that you did recently.
Something like that. So there is this group called Artworks for Freedom, and they their goal is to raise awareness for human trafficking. It's a pretty heavy duty group, and they try to raise awareness through the arts. And again, that's a wonderful creative way to do things. The founder just recently died, but she was she was a photographer. That's how she started. And then she, through her lens, found these, you know, places where human trafficking was just, you know, intolerable. And she started to make it her mission to eradicate it. And so anyway, they had this wonderful event. It was, what was it called? It was murals. Oh, it was a murals event where it was in New York City, and they got all these young artists, you know, in their teens, school age kids, to come in, and they talked to them about human trafficking, and they were all just, you know, appalled by it. And they said, you know, so if you were to visually represent, you know, human trafficking, how would you do this? And so they had this event where all these kids got together, and they painted these murals, these huge murals. And so they were filming with their their phones and their cameras, this whole event that went on. And so Kay came to me and she said, we have all this great footage of this event and I want to put it on our website, but I don't know, we don't know how to do it or what to do with it. And I'd worked with her on some little projects before. And I said, well, give me the footage. Let me see what it is. And literally they were interviewing people in these big noisy rooms. It was terrible, right? Quality wise, it was terrible. But the event was amazing. So that's somewhere on my website. You could find it, I think.
Where would I go to find that?
Yeah, shoot.
It's okay. We'll put it on the web.
So Artworks for Freedom is the name of the group, and I can give it to you.
Yeah,
that you can put in. But so you'll watch it. It's just this 2-3 minute thing, and the quality of it is terrible. The quality of the filming of it, but they loved it. And she said it got more views than anything else that
really, wow,
for years and years. And I was just like, well, yay, and it's like that. So I'm really proud of that. Now, would I show that on my reel, to say, oh, this is the kind of work I can do? Probably not, because the quality of it is so, I tried to fix the audio. I really did, but it was just, they're interviewing this cavernous room, but it tells the story of what they did. And it's beautiful and wonderful. And so those are the kinds of things that.
Well, sometimes something that is not slickly produced has more authenticity than something that is.
Amen.
I don't think I'm spinning it, because sometimes I say something that's way too slick.
It is really true. You're just like getting to the heart of it. And
right. This is an important, these guys, they were doing something very important, and they were not interested in looking slick. They're interested in getting a message across. And,
right. And so I really love that. I think, so that's kind of a special opportunity for me, especially with nonprofits, because sometimes they just don't, they don't have the resources or the means, and I can help them out.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's a different kind of a process, maybe a kind of an engagement when you're doing it for, say, a corporation that has resources and has whatever.
Night and day.
And they have people with very, who are opinionated, and they want this and that, right?
Yes. You have to go through multitudes of, layers to get something done. And very, very different.
And part of your skill set is not to get demoralized by such, right?
So I just breathe.
You just breathe, right? Just breathe. No, that's important. It's important to keep on keeping on.
It is.
Tell me,
so the difference, contrary to that experience that I just described, working for a corporation, one that will really be unnamed, they pay really well. So that, I'm like, yay, I'll take this.
I'll put up with whatever.
The other ones don't pay so well, but and usually they're very tightly scripted. It's like, here's our message and here's what we're going to say. And, some people get so every layer of approval, they're all looking at it through their own filter, through their own lens, and they want their, kind of issues dealt with. And if that doesn't happen, then the whole piece has to be kind of redone. So it can be very frustrating. And it's creatively wise, sometimes I'll try to do things that I think are really creative, that are adding to, getting this message across. And it's like, just get to the guts of it, just get to the meat of it. And I just, okay. But it's frustrating sometimes, but I also really try to stay very positive in that. I have to learn to adapt, right? I have to play nice and work well with others. And I have to sometimes be the one who's getting all of these folks to collaborate and agree on and compromising. So sometimes I'm the mediator as well as the editor. And so it's a different skill set. And not one that sometimes I'm exhausted after a project with something like that. But I feel like, it's an important process and it's an important job. And, if it works for them, I'm happy.
Yeah. Well, that's why, they pay the money, right? To put up with stuff like that. We folks who are in the voice user interface design, probably have it worst of all, because since everybody, all of us, all human beings almost, right, are competent conversationalists. we know how to talk, right? So if we, the folks who are building these voice bots, whose job is to design the bot to say this and that and that and that, oftentimes when we hired these folks who have never done ever, designing of a bot, all of a sudden they have ideas and they think that their wording is better than your wording. And so they don't fully understand the function of designing. Basically, they fall into the fallacy of they think that when you design conversation between a human and a bot, the same rules that one uses when they are talking to another person apply, right? So they say, well, that doesn't sound human. No, no, it should not sound human. It should do its thing. It shouldn't say, hello, how are you doing today? No, it shouldn't do that, right? I mean, why would you waste the person's time?
Engage, yeah.
Engage and all that. So, I mean, I sympathize with that. And then, of course, you have the legal people who want to open the prompt to say X, Y, and Z.
God,
And I'm like, no, we're not going to do that, right? And then so you have to navigate and you have to compromise. I'm sure you experience the same, right?
Definitely.
The marketers and the legal and all that and all that and all that.
Yep.
And then you have the egos of the executives, right? I mean, in your scripts, I'm sure, or in your videos, does the CEO appear or something? Do you have to negotiate that? Like, how come this?
Oh yeah, no, it's very much so. I mean, there's like I said, so many layers, and then once it gets into the executive level, and yes, and sometimes people insist on being a part, like involved and on camera, and they're terrible. And you can't do anything about it. Just can't. That's the way it is. So again, in post, we call saving it in post. You just do the best you can to make them not look terrible.
Saving it, is that an expression?
Oh yes, save it in post.
Which means that you're trying to mitigate the
that
negative.
means that the post-production, the editing process, they're going to make it good somehow. Even if it's not so good when it goes in there.
They might dub
Yeah, no, save it in post is a very real, I get told that all the time. Well, you'll save it in post, right?
Is that what you say? Wow, okay. Wonderful. So I guess my next question is about so audio is the world I live in, right?
Yes.
And the audience that's watching this, that's the world they live in, right? I think we've established through the work that you do that audio is an important part of your work. I mean, I'm fascinated by the fact that you do audio for plays. That's probably a nerve-wracking, right? I mean, when the play is going on, you have to make sure everything is timed, right?
Oh yeah.
You do that through the computer, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So how a show is run? The show is run by the stage manager. So the stage manager's on the headset. Everybody's, all the crew people, the lights people, sound people, operators all have headsets. And the stage manager is following the script, and they have notes for themselves where every cue, it's called their cues, come in. So, and that's what the tech. So right now I'm in the tech week for a show right now. So every night we are perfecting that, how the show is run. The stage manager isn't, so the director's not involved anymore. Stage manager runs a show, and they are calling the cues, like, the lights go up here, sound goes here, and they're telling you, ready, go. It's kind of like a live TV. It's kind of like a live TV broadcast, if you ever have seen that, where you have someone on the headset and everybody else is pushing the buttons to make things happen. Okay. It's very much like that.
So you provide, so you provide all the elements and so forth, and the execution of it real time is somebody else.
Usually. Yeah, I'll get a crew to actually do the operating after the design is done. Then my work is done. Sometimes in the little theater groups like the one I'm doing right now, I'm actually going to be running the show because it's small and it's a 2-week run, so I'll do it. But I'm following the stage manager. He's telling me when to. I tell him when I want it. As a designer, I tell him when I want the cue to happen, but then he calls it during the show.
I see. Okay. And you, so I was going to ask you about, do you do voiceover work?
Sure. Yeah. So because of my theatrical experience, when I started to do editing, in post-production, when you're editing, you will record what they call a rough voice track, and you'll put it into your piece just to kind of, with the narration pieces, not intending that you would be the narrator, but just as a placeholder.
Sure.
So then afterwards, when the script is approved, everything is approved, then they hire a narrator, male, female, whatever, to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of got into it because on my scratch track, I would record, and one time a producer went, well, who's that's doing the voice on that? And I said, well, that's just me. That's just, I put in a scratch track. And she goes, well, I really like your voice. Can you do the real thing? Can you redo it and do it for real? And I went, sure. Okay. So I started, and that's really how it developed. I didn't really pursue voice.
Well, you're a singer.
So I'm a singer. I'm an actress. Voice. So I know, like we were talking about, knowing the inflections, knowing the pauses,
so you have all the elements.
My dramatic reading.
Right.
So I would, give it a little something, even though it was a scratch track. And so that I've gotten many voice jobs just from my scratch tracks on my thing. So I did kind of think about pursuing it in its own, entity, but it takes a lot of work.
Oh, it is a lot of work. I mean,
record all your demos and.
Oh yeah, no, it's a profession.
So yeah. I just usually, word of mouth, people will say, oh, I heard your voiceover on this, blah, blah, can you do one for me? So yeah, I'll do a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I'm a hired gun. I'll do anything.
Same here. Whatever it takes. And so your company, is it your company, Offbook Productions?
Offbook Productions.
Offbook, I'm sorry.
Offbook. So Offbook is a bit of an homage to my theater love. So Offbook is a theater term. You're learning. I'm giving you a couple of.
Oh yeah, I'm building a glossary. Offbook.
So Offbook means, so when you're in rehearsal process, you're using your scripts when you're rehearsing, and then you got to get rid of your scripts at some point, right? So that's what we call being off book, when you don't need your script anymore. And it's a rehearsal phase. The director will say, I want everyone off book by July 22nd.
Well, that's what they say.
No one can use their script anymore. So it's a theater term, but I also use it as kind of a life metaphor, that when you're off book, you're not living your life by the script anymore.
No more training wheels.
So I thought it would be kind of a catchy.
That's a great name.
For my production.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah.
And so how long would it take someone to go from, reliant on script to off book for their role?
So depending on the complexity of the play or the musical, it's usually they give you about 4 to 6 weeks.
Really?
Of rehearsal. 4 weeks, I would say. 4 weeks, and then you need to start being off book. A lot of people will just go off book on their own because they want to do it that way. It's so much easier to act when you don't have a script in your hands. So the first 2 or 3 weeks for sure, everybody's on book, and then people will start to fall off book, and then the director will say, I want everyone off book by a certain. So I'd say 4 to 6 weeks, something like that.
So we know not off book. You have so you're holding something in front of you, talking.
You got your script. You got your script. And you're going through the blocking, people are telling, and you're writing down in your script, like what your blocking is. Okay, move state, move state. Oh, blocking is where you are on the stage. So if you're walking to a piece of furniture over here, or you're crossing to another actor, the director is telling you what to do with all that. You don't just get up on stage and walk around and do your thing. The director blocks it all out. And so the director might say, when you say this line, walk over to this actor and say the line over there. And that's part of your blocking. So you will write that in your script. When I say this line, I'm crossing left to the armoire.
And that's not part of your script. You have to, that comes out.
No. That's the director. That's the director's vision of how the chess pieces on the board are moving. That's all the director.
So there's I guess I'm not surprised. There's an element of creation director, right? I mean, not simply,
absolutely.
They have a lot of influence.
The director has the vision of how the story is told, and the director has to come up with every scene, how it is all blocked, how all the actors are moving. Director is working with the set designer and all of that to make sure that the set is exactly, the way they want it to be. So the director is the head honcho when it comes to the designing of everything.
So they take a script and they bring it to life through the actors.
And they have to have all that prepared before they go to rehearsal with the actors. They have to know what they want to tell the actors to do before they get there. So it's a lot of prep work.
Do you think that they have to adjust given, say, the mannerism of the actor? Like,
Absolutely. If they're a good director, they
mm,
absolutely, it's a two-way process.
right.
And
It's a
an actor will
symbiote.
say, it doesn't feel comfortable to walk over there during this. I'd rather like do this. I think this feels more comfortable. And the director will go, yes, or no, let's
Hmm.
stick to my plan. It definitely is a give and take process to have.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. And do they get involved in say the casting?
the
Um,
director,
yeah,
director picks every person that gets cast. Absolutely.
they do. Okay.
Yes.
And well, I thought there was somebody who's in charge of casting. Is it somebody who brings folks to them?
If you are in a big
Yeah,
theater thing in New York or whatever, you might have casting directors that help bring the cast
bring.
to
But
you,
the
but
director
the
is
director is casting them.
because they'll
They
be
have the
working.
final word.
Right, right. Okay. Yeah. So that's why
Sure.
they always in movies.
You hear about that director's couch,
Oh no, let's not go there. Um,
Sorry.
no, no, it's good. It's good. Everything stays. No,
But no,
no. I
that's
was gonna
because the director does have the final say of who.
right. That's why the last name that they show in the movie before it starts is the name of the director, right? Not even
For
the
sure.
producer.
For sure.
What does
The
the producer
producer, the
do?
producer, so
Mm,
producers like in film and in theater are the ones who get the money.
bring
They're
the
the
money.
ones who are, calling more the budget, the financial, they are the logistic people.
Aren't they the ones? I mean, who is the person in terms of role who has a vision and says, "I want to make this movie"? Is it the producer or is it
That's
the
the
director? Or
director. That's the
the
director.
director is the one who says, "I want to make this movie," and then goes and then finds a producer.
Well,
Yeah.
so it happens both ways.
Oh, okay.
So you may have a production company, a big movie company that finds scripts. People that look for scripts, and they
Mm, mm,
kind of get this going, and they say, "I want this director to do
mm,
it." But
mhm.
then once they put that director on board, that director is the
Is
visionary.
in charge. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty much that's the way it works. You might
Okay.
have producers trying to influence the director, and that's
Sure.
a lot of you'll see now, like Brad Pitt is producing this or whatever, because now they're getting more into that because they can use their name as cachet to get finances and all that
Sure.
stuff.
I see. I see.
But they do have some producers definitely have some influence for sure. But when it comes down to shooting, the cast and all the filming process and the post, the director is the one who has the final say on that.
Isn't the editor also like somebody who's editing the cut? How much say do they have with along the director?
That's an interesting question. I have not worked in the big movie
Yeah.
world. Um, so in my small little world, editor has a lot more say. It's much more collaborative, but I'm not sure in the big film world. First of all, everything is shot so carefully. I mean,
Mm,
there's not a lot of random stuff that the editor
mm,
has to choose between. But
mm.
I think that a really good editor definitely brings their personal stamp to pacing and timing, and choices as to when music needs to come in. Those kinds of things. It's collaborative, but the director is the one who's saying, "I
Is the
want that.
boss?
I
Yeah.
want that take. I want that take." Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the last question is the following. Why do you why do you think, and I think I can state as a fact, why do you think that um a movie would lose a lot without music?
Ooh,
I mean, I don't know the answer to that question. So whenever I get a chance to ask it, I mean, it's just it brings a lot like the music, right?
it does, but it also does color things,
Yeah.
It's like telling the audience, oh, this is going to be an intense scene, or
Right.
oh, this is a really feel good, happy scene. So it's reinforcing those kinds of things that it wants. So you will see some documentaries that don't have music because they don't want to
Yeah.
color
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
how the viewer, they want it to be authentic, as you were saying before.
Yeah.
This is the story. We're not going to add anything that tells you how we think it should be interpreted.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Uh,
those are, I think, those are the exception to the rule, and I definitely notice them and I appreciate them. But sometimes I also see, I don't know, these podcasts. I think a couple of them are on NPR. Give me a name of a big one. I'm blanking. Um, Hourglass or whatever. Where throughout the podcast and they're talking and they're giving a story and all that, there's music in the background, right? And sort of it gives it a certain feel to it. Um, I personally, like, when I watch old movies, I feel like they're being a bit too manipulative and too obvious. Like, okay, now something bad is gonna happen.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally. Yeah. And so we get used to that in certain genres, right? So that genre is one of them. And I also think that you know, we come to expect a certain amount of background enhancement noise. We are people that get bombarded all the time with noise. Now, one trend in audio production, which I don't like, maybe you've noticed this too, but my husband and I will be watching something and I'll say, I can't hear the dialogue. I can't hear the dialogue. Well, turn up the volume. Can't hear it because it's all mished in here, right?
Yeah.
So you'll have the music and these sound effects are really loud. And the dialogue is down here. And this is like a weird trend. It's not just like one show that we've noticed, it's show after show. And I'll mention it to other people of our generation anyway. And they're like, yeah, we have to put the subtitles on sometimes to listen, to watch.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I don't know what this trend is, but I feel like that's just putting it on its reverse side. The dialogue should always be forefront. You need to tell the story, you need to hear what the story is. Unless it's part of the story that you can't hear somebody what they're saying. So I've noticed that trend the last couple of years, that things are just, the dialogue is getting buried in.
Interesting. I also heard that on the flip side, I don't know if well, I heard about a few months ago, Netflix is releasing some of their movies in audio only format. Because a lot of people are listening to stuff during the day, and they might want to listen to their series, right? They don't have time to, right? And they might listen and go watch again, right? So there's apparently something going on there about being able to just listen to stuff. I don't know about you, but I have acquired a bad habit of, I need some kind of a podcast to sleep. You know, very bad.
That is
but usually it has to
be.
I
understand it.
It has to be a podcast where whatever is being talked about is something I completely agree with.
Oh, right. So you're lulling yourself.
I'm lulling myself, like, I don't know. I don't care about the audience's political leanings, but my leanings are left. And I listen to, like, I don't know, anyone from MSNBC will be soothing, you know. Right. And I know exactly what they'll be saying. And there's no surprise. My brain is not working at all. It's like, okay, this is all good.
It's a good way to shut it down.
Shut it down.
It's all peaceful and light.
There are still rational people out there. It's all good. And
God.
It lulls me to sleep. On that note, the hour is up.
Yay.
And you said that you thought.
I know. Somehow I filled an hour. I don't know. You're an amazing host. That's why.
Oh, thank you.
You drew it all out of me.
No. I think we just scratched the surface. I think there's so much that you can teach me and the audience. And you've taught me, I think, 6 terms.
Oh, good.
I have to go and log them, because I log stuff that I learned, because otherwise I'll forget it.
Oh, excellent.
Offbook is one. That's a great one.
Yes, right? It is.
I'm gonna use it with my son. Are you Offbook on your homework?
That's right. And he'll look at you like, what? For once, that'll be good, right?
Janice Rivera, thank you so much for being for taking the time and being part of this. I appreciate it.
It was delightful. My pleasure.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.